order. I will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance today. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Schiebel, please call the roll.
Representatives Amabile, Armagost, Bacon, AML Bacon,
Excused.
Byrd, Bockenfeld is excused, Basenecker, Bottoms, Bradfield, Bradley, Brown, Catlin, Clifford, Doherty, Representative Doherty,
Excused.
DeGraff, Degree Kennedy,
Excused.
Duran, English is excused, Epps, Evans, Frizzell, Froelich, Garcia, Hamrick, Hartsook, Hernandez, Representative Hernandez,
Excused.
Herod, Holtorf, Judah, Joseph, Kip, Leader, Lindsay, Representative Lindsay,
Excused.
Linstead, Luck, Lukens, Lynch, Mabry, Marshall, Martinez, Marvin, Morrow, McCormick, McLaughlin, Ortiz, Representative Ortiz,
Excused.
Parenti, Puglisi, Ricks, Representative Ricks,
Excused.
Rutinell, Sirota, Snyder, Soper, he's on the wall, Story, Rep Story,
Excused.
Taggart, Titone,
Here.
Valdez A, Velasco, Vigil, Weinberg, Weissman, Wilford, Wilson, Winter, Woodrow,
Here. Here.
Young, Representative Young, and Madam Speaker.
Here. With 57 present, 8 excused. Welcome, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. Floor is yours. We do have a quorum. You're right. I needed to say it out loud.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move that the Journal of Sunday, April 14th, 2024 be approved as corrected by the Chief Clerk.
Members, you have heard the motion that the journal be approved as corrected by the Chief Clerk. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The motion is adopted. Members, we are going to do some announcements here initially. Representative Holtorf.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Esteemed colleagues, Robin, can you turn this mic up a little bit? It's not working very good. Just kidding. I have a very unique privilege, and we all enjoy the opportunity to do this because we know that our time here is finite. We come, we serve, and we go. But I have a young lady, the Honorable Ramey Johnson from Lakewood, who served back in 2003, 2004. Ma'am, if you could stand up, we'd like to welcome you and thank you for your service in this chamber.
Thank you. Representative Judah.
Members, if you noticed, this morning's prayer was centered around children. I have about 50 kids in here and in the gallery from Crescent View Academy and HD 41. If we can welcome them, I would much appreciate it. A great suggestion that they had was to pass a law that we make sure popcorn doesn't have too much butter or salt. So whoever wants to pull the bill title, feel free.
There's a late bill that I'll approve for sure. Representative Snyder.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. House Finance will meet at 1:30 today in room 112 to hear the following bills. House Bill 1379, House Bill 1327, Senate Bill 10, Senate Bill 20, Senate Bill 86, House Bill 1330, House Bill 1439, and Senate Bill 53. Thank you.
Representative Mabry.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, I have some guests here today from DU, Intro to Government class. They're over here on the side. Go say hi. They're going to watch us debate here on second readings, and then maybe we'll get a tour of the Capitol later. But definitely go say hi.
Great, thank you. Woo. Representative Holtorf.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I know 2 times in a row, but I am very excited because the Fighting Rams from Akron High School are here. If you folks would stand up there, stand up, come on. All right, so my high school, I graduated in the class of 1983. I know it was decades ago, but I'm really happy to have them here to do their civic tour to the Capitol and learn about how they make the sausage here in the Golden Dome.
Thank you. Representative McCormick.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I wanted to make sure everyone's aware that we are not having House Agriculture today, nor are we on Thursday, and I am prodding the Senate to get their work done, to get all those bills that are lined up ready for us to get them over here. So no agriculture, water, natural resources today.
Thank you. Representative Young.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I am excited to announce we're joined by the president of the University of Northern Colorado, Dr. Andy Feinstein. Please join me in greeting him. The University of Northern Colorado is a leader in education, behavioral health, and hopefully the future home of the School of Osteopathic Medicine. Please join me in greeting him.
Thank you. Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move that the following bills be made special orders on Monday, April 15th, 2024, at 10:19 a.m. Members, listen up. House Bill 1235, House Bill 1231, Senate Bill 108, House Bill 1273, House Bill 1335, House Bill 1336, Senate Bill 81, House Bill 1368, and House Bill 1099.
Seeing no objection, the bills listed by the Majority Leader will be made special orders on Monday, April 15th at 10:19 a.m. Representative Lukens. Members, you have heard the motion. Seeing no objection, Representative Lukens will take the chair.
The committee will come to order. With your unanimous consent, the bills will be read by title unless there is a request for reading a bill at length. Committee reports are printed and in your bill folders. Floor amendments will be shown on the screen and on your iPads. Bills will be laid over upon motion of the majority leader, and the coat rule is relaxed. Mr. Schiebel, please read the title of House Bill 1235.
House Bill 1235 by Representatives Brown and Byrd, also Senators Fenberg and Zenzinger, concerning measures to reduce the impact of aviation on surrounding communities.
Representative Brown.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move House Bill 1235, the Appropriations Committee, or the Transportation Committee report, the Finance Committee report, and the Appropriations Committee report.
Thank you. Members, if we could just lower our voices so that we can all hear what is happening. And to the Appropriations Committee report, Representative Brown.
Thank you. In the Appropriations Committee report, we appropriated some money. We ask for an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of the Appropriations report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The Appropriations Committee report passes. Representative Brown.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Finance Committee report, we made two small amendments in the Finance Committee. One was to include electric aircraft charging technology as part of the allowable uses of the fund, and then another was to make sure that everybody was complying with federal laws, and we'd ask for an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion on the Finance report? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of the Finance report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The Finance report passes. Representative Brown.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will move L008 to the Transportation Housing Local Government Committee report and ask that it be displayed.
It is properly displayed. Representative Brown.
Thank you, Madam Chair. L008 makes this non-refundable tax credit a refundable tax credit. The reason that we're doing that is based on feedback from the department. They believe it will be easier to administer, and we'd ask for an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of L8. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. L8 passes. And members, let's please try to keep our voices down so you all can hear when I ask for an aye or a nay. Representative Brown.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move L009 to the Transportation Housing Local Government Committee report and ask that it be displayed.
It is properly displayed. Representative Brown.
Thank you. This amendment clarifies the role of the Department of Public Health and Environment, and we'd ask for an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of L9. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. L9 passes. Representative Brown.
Last one. I move L010 to the Transportation Housing Local Government Committee report and ask that it be displayed.
It is properly displayed. Representative Brown.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This amendment is just a conforming amendment to make sure that language in two sections of the bill is the same. So we'd ask for an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of L10. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. L10 passes. Representative Brown.
At this point, we'd ask for an aye vote on the Transportation Committee report.
Is there any further discussion on the Transportation Committee report? Seeing none, the question before us is the THLG Committee report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The Transportation, Housing, and Local Government Committee report passes. Representative Brown to the bill.
Okay. Why don't you start? Sorry.
Representative Byrd.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, I'm so honored and delighted to join my good colleague from Louisville in sponsoring this bill, and want to begin by thanking him for his work to bring so many people together on what has been a very challenging issue impacting many of our communities. Members, we know that airports are a critical part of our state's infrastructure. The transportation that they provide is key to our state's economy. They play a vital public safety role, particularly during wildfire season, and they help to train new pilots who are essential. I had the opportunity actually recently to visit the Rocky Mountain Metropolitan Airport and was able to see firsthand the good work that they are doing. Airports and the necessary activity that they support must, however, respectfully and safely coexist with their neighbors. This bill is about facilitating within the limits of our state's authority a proper balance between the important work of airports and the needs of their neighbors for a safe environment and the quiet enjoyment of their homes. Toward the objective of safety, our bill includes financial assistance in the form of grants and tax credits for operators who wish to adapt their planes to unleaded fuel consumption, and tax credits to assist those airports that wish to install infrastructure that will help support the delivery of unleaded fuel. And to achieve a better balance between airport operations and neighboring residents and businesses, a few important changes include ensuring the residents' voices are heard, educating airports and operators about how to mitigate their impact on airport neighbors, and incentivizing noise abatement plans. Importantly, a focus on health, safety, and welfare of neighboring communities is prioritized. These are common sense changes that I am proud to support and hope you will join us in voting yes for this bill.
Representative Brown.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And first, I just want to say thank you to my co-prime sponsor, the good representative from Westminster. She's been an amazing ally and leader on this issue, and I have been so thankful to have her support. You know, when we think about airports, we often think about large commercial airports like DIA or Denver, but in fact, our state has 76 public use airports, and they range from smaller airports like those in Rifle or Yuma to larger airports like Centennial and Rocky Mountain Metropolitan Airport. Many of our states...
Representative Brown, I'm going to interrupt you. Members, we really need to be quieter so everyone can hear what we are saying in the well, so please quiet down. Representative Brown, please continue.
Thank you. Many of our airports, states' airports exist in populated areas, and over time, as my co-prime sponsor mentioned, there have been conflicts that have arisen. And whether the community or the airport predates one another, they have to be able, they grow up together and they have to be able to live together. Airports are essential to our transportation infrastructure, but they can also have negative impacts on our communities. And this past fall, myself and the good representative from Boulder and some other elected officials met with members from community members from across the state and heard concerns. Increasingly, researchers, government agencies, and communities have become increasingly concerned about the potential harmful effects of lead, in particular, from aviation fuel. And this past summer, the EPA issued what is known as an endangerment finding related to the use of lead in aircraft fuel, aviation fuel. So this bill is about making sure that airports and communities can coexist, ensuring that we can continue to benefit from the role that airports play in our state while acknowledging and mitigating the potential adverse impacts. Our role in this has limits. I will be the first to admit that the state can't tell pilots where to fly. We do not operate airports. But we can use our authority to spend money to provide resources that will help our communities transition away from leaded fuel while ensuring that our communities and airports can coexist better. So with that, I would ask for an aye vote.
Representative Amabile.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I'm up here today to strongly support the passage of this bill. My colleague from Louisville minimized what happened during the interim. We had a meeting in Superior, and hundreds of people showed up, hundreds of people who have been adversely impacted by the airport that's right next to where they live. And one of the criticisms was, well, you moved in next to an airport, and so you should just live with it. But things have changed since those neighborhoods were built. Dramatically changed. I sat in somebody's backyard in Superior as plane after plane after plane flew by. You could see them. They were huge. They were flying so low that you couldn't even have a conversation. And it wasn't just occasionally, it was constant. So we have to do something to mitigate the harms that these airports, which have grown in the number of flights exponentially, they fly all day and all night long. We heard from high school kids who can't sleep at night in their homes, even with all the doors and windows shut. So this is a first step in addressing what is a real and growing problem, and I want to thank the sponsors for bringing the bill. I will be a huge supporter, and I hope you will be too. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion? Representative Clifford.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's an honor to serve with you.
And an honor to serve with you.
On the January 3rd, about 9:30 p.m., we finished the vacancy process that put me here. At 9:35, I heard from the very first person from our airport community. Centennial has the largest general aviation airport in this country, and I have been working with Rep. Brown on this piece of legislation nonstop since I got here. I applaud the efforts that are in this bill. I think they're extraordinary. I think that this is probably the most effective, absolutely incentivizing way, all carrot, no stick, to get us moved to a very quick move from leaded fuel to unleaded fuel, where it doesn't cost the pilots or the airport a thing in order to move us in a good direction. So regardless of what your thoughts are on lead exposure, or regardless of what studies happen, I think that this is absolutely the most aggressive way that we can put our money where our mouth is in this state in order to accommodate very aggressive, reasonable goals to move people from leaded fuel to unleaded fuel. And I can just ditto what both of the other people, all the people that have come up here before about noise. You know, noise is a massive issue. I want to thank everybody that's been at work on this issue. I think this is extraordinary legislation, and I am a yes today.
Is the Representative Evans?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And usually when I come down here, I talk a lot about law enforcement, but you all know that my other industry was aviation. Have my FAA commercial, ran aviation outfits. And so this was a bill that was flagged for me by industry, like on day 2 of the session that it was anticipated to be coming. And the fact that I'm going to be down here for 45 seconds, I think is indicative of all of the good work that the sponsors have put into this bill. So I just wanted to come down here and thank the sponsors for the fact that I only have to be down here for 45 seconds and not significantly longer with a whole bunch of amendments. So thank you for all the work that you've done on this.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of House Bill 1235. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. House Bill 1235 passes. Mr. Schiebel, please read the title of House Bill 1231.
House Bill 1231 by Representatives Young and Doherty, also Senators Kirkmeyer and Mullica, concerning state funding for 4 projects related to health science education programs for medical professions being undertaken by state institutions of higher education and in connection therewith, authorizing the state to issue finance purchase of an asset or certificate of participation agreements to finance a portion of capital costs associated with construction of facilities for the University of Northern Colorado's College of Osteopathic Medicine, Metropolitan State University of Denver's Health Institute Tower, Colorado State University's Veterinary Health Education Campus, and expansion and renovation of Trinidad State College's Valley Campus main building, and providing funding for escrow money that is required for accreditation of the University of Northern Colorado's College of Osteopathic Medicine by transferring money from the general fund for ultimate deposit to an escrow account and reducing the state reserve by the same amount for the period during which the money is held in escrow.
Good job. Representative Young.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It is an honor to serve with you.
And an honor to serve with you.
I move House Bill 1231 and the Committee and Appropriations Report.
So moved to the Appropriations Committee report. Oh, I'm sorry, Representative Young, if you could also move the Health and Human Services report.
Yes, Madam Chair. I did move the committee report, which is the Health and Human Services. Health and Human Services report. Health and Human Services report.
Thank you. To the Appropriations Committee report. Representative Young.
Appropriations funded construction funds for the College of Osteopathic Medicine at UNC, the Health Institute Tower at MSU Denver, the Veterinary Health Education Complex at CSU, and the Valley Campus Addition at Trinidad State.
Is there any further discussion on the Appropriations Committee report? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of the Appropriations Committee report. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no.
Aye.
The ayes have it. The Appropriations Committee report passes. To the Health and Human Services Committee report, Representative Young.
The Health and Human Services Committee adopted one amendment to change the due date of the certificates of participation from October to December.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of the Health and Human Services Committee report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The Health and Human Services report passes. To the bill, Representative Young.
As the representative for the University of Northern Colorado and Northern Colorado, I have long been a supporter of establishing a medical college at UNC because I know what it will mean for the region, especially our rural communities and our underserved populations. Recently, the University of Northern Colorado has been designated as a Hispanic serving institution. I served as a sponsor of Senate Bill 22056, which authorized UNC to offer degrees in osteopathic medicine. I also know through my work in behavioral health that access to health care is a critical need for the residents of Colorado. We have an opportunity with this bill to train more professionals across the health sciences to better serve our local communities in the state. Currently, 40% of Coloradans live in an area with a shortage of behavioral health workers. Our state-funded institutions of higher education are poised to help meet an urgent workforce and community need. And as elected officials, we have an important role in supporting their efforts. These universities and Trinidad State College are uniquely...
Representative Young, I'm going to interrupt you. I'm so sorry. Members, we need to quiet it down, please, so we can hear what's happening. Thank you. Representative Young, please continue.
These universities and Trinidad State College are uniquely positioned to address the urgent labor market needs and long-standing inequities in the number and diversity of healthcare professionals in Colorado. Through 4 distinct and complementary initiatives, these institutions of higher ed will be positioned to grow the number of primary care physicians, veterinarians, nurses, behavioral health providers, and other crucial allied health professionals across the state. As I said, we are funding 4 unique programs across the state. And as you can see, this bill is not just about healthcare workforce for humans, but also for our animals to meet the critical shortage of veterinarians. Together, these facilities will allow the institutions of higher education to add approximately 150 new doctors, 290 new allied health professionals, 120 new veterinarians, and 50 new nurses to the workforce each year.
Representative Doherty.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And as you heard from my co-prime, there's clearly a need across our state in healthcare and veterinarian care, and our institutions of higher education are proving their willingness to step up to meet that need, and I urge an aye vote. Thank you.
Representative Weinberg.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It is an honor to serve with you.
And an honor to serve with you.
Thank you, ma'am. Fellow colleagues, just want to explain a few things. Initially, when this bill came before the Finance Committee, I sit on the Finance Committee, I was very hesitant, especially looking at the numbers. I was a no. Finally digging into it, having the time to really look at what this bill does and how this will be absolutely beyond beneficial for our state, I rise in support wholeheartedly for this bill. This was truly done so well to the point of the money will not be coming from a state taxpayer from my pocket, and that is one of the most important things to me, being a fiscal conservative down in this chamber. There's really nothing more to say, but thank you to the bill sponsors for working so diligently and hard with the schools that were lacking, and I am really excited about this one and the future of what it's going to bring to the state, and I would enthusiastically urge everyone unanimously to vote aye.
Representative Hernandez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's an honor to serve with you.
And an honor to serve with you.
Colleagues, I rise today in deep alignment, actually, and considering everything that we've experienced in the last 24 hours, I'm actually very thankful to be up here after my colleague in Loveland, because I think we understand that there's important work to be done on a lot of different issues in the state of Colorado. And so I want to speak in support of this, not just because I deeply care about making sure that we have medical institutions in in Colorado that work for our communities, in rural communities, in Denver, in my district. But I want to share, we publicly celebrated Dr. Annie Feinstein, who is the president of the University of Northern Colorado. I was also a yes on this bill in committee, and I shared this in committee also. For folks that don't know, I went to the University of Northern Colorado, and I walked past Bishop Blair Hall, which is a building on our campus that would be used to be able to facilitate this instruction. I think it's deeply important for folks that don't know. I was the first Latino student body president in the history of University of Northern Colorado in 130 years. The city of Greeley is over 40% Latino, and this is going to be an excellent opportunity to create doctors and medical professionals that look like the demographics of the city that it exists in. And so I shared this, and another fun fact for us, and I'll get out of here, is Dr. Annie Feinstein was actually the first president at the University of Northern Colorado. In his first year, I was his student body president. So I'm very thankful to throw the assist, throw the alley-oop today, and say I ask for an enthusiastic yes vote and an aye vote.
Representative Bradfield.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I, too, rise in support for this bill. We heard it in Health and Human Services, and we appreciate the well-structured bill that it is, and encourage a yes vote. Thank you.
Is there any further Representative Holtorf.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As the ranking member on Human Services, we heard this bill. And in rural Colorado, especially, we know, and for all the rural legislators in the chamber, we know that we are desperately short of doctors, nurses, and medical technicians. By supporting this bill, we expand the training opportunities for those different classifications and occupational specialties, and we hope that we can grow our own in Colorado and keep these folks in Colorado, and they can come out to the rural areas and help provide these health services that we so desperately need. So I believe everybody now in my caucus is in support of this bill, and I'm glad that we have come together and rallied around good legislation brought forth by these two fine bill sponsors.
Representative Taggart.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's an honor to serve with you.
And an honor to serve with you.
Timing is absolutely critical on this bill. I think we all know the requests of our Capital Development Committee are far beyond the budget that we can afford on a yearly basis. I believe the needs are well over $1 billion. And the need for health care, whether it has to do with medical health care or from our animals in this state, are absolutely critical. COPs represent a method in this particular case to speed up the timing and help us address critical health needs in this state. And I would ask you for an aye on this key piece of legislation. Thank you.
Representative Byrd.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. I just want to echo many of the sentiments that have already been expressed here, but just say, as a former chair of the House Finance Committee and a member of the Finance Committee for 4 years, I'm not there now, but over the course of 4 years and the 6 years I've been here, we have seen so many different methods and attempts to try to foster the growth and strong development of healthcare workforce in all 4 corners of our state. And really, I don't think there has been one solution that really can address all of the needs of our state, but I will just say having another medical school in the state will go a long way to helping people, again, in further the eastern portion of our state, the northeastern portion of our state, stay in their communities, get the education that they need. Perhaps many of these students might not be able to get a medical education, but for the fact of having a great resource nearby. So this will do so much to making sure that all citizens of Colorado have access to the healthcare professionals that they need. And I'm very excited to support this and grateful for the university. I know there are several universities actually working to make this a reality, and I'm in 100% support.
AML Winter.
Good morning, Madam Chair, and thank you. I also stand in strong support of this bill. As you all know, I represent the Trinidad area. I thank you for this. Actually, this semester there, as I was doing a athletic transfer between schools, it's really important for our communities to recruit and keep kids local. They're part of the fabric of the community, they're part of the community, and they know each other. And to try to keep those kids in their home area, that way they can help provide service, that way they can help provide care for our constituents. It's a huge thing. This is a very important bill. This does help southeastern Colorado a lot. Thank you, Rip Bird, for bringing that up. And it does help us recruit and maintain our constituents to go to school and stay within our districts to help their families and future generations. So thank you for bringing this bill. I appreciate it, and I urge a yes vote.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of House Bill 1231. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. 1231 passes. Mr. Shebo, please read Senate Bill 108.
Senate Bill 108 by Senators Priol and Baisley, also Representatives Parenti and Weinberg, concerning a prohibition on affiliating with a public safety radio network without authorization.
Representative Weinberg.
Thank you, Madam Chair. General Assembly 74. This bill came out of Joint Technology Committee. My co-prime next to me, we've at length discussed this with multiple agencies that are majorly in favor. This bill creates a Class 2 misdemeanor for knowingly transmitting or receiving a signal on a public safety radio network without authorization. This is straightforward legislation. It's rare to say that down here, and I would urge an aye vote.
Representative Weinberg, please move the bill.
I'll do it.
Representative Parenti.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. I move Senate Bill 24-108.
To the bill, Representative Parenti.
Thank you. Colleagues, this bill was brought to us by the Department of Public Safety through the Joint Technology Committee because of some recent activities happening across the state where malicious actors have been cloning public safety radios, which shuts down the network in some cases for authorized users. These activities can send first responders to incorrect locations. They can fail to identify first responders who are in the area who should be able to respond to an emergency. And right now, under Colorado state law, we can only prosecute these moments of interference when an actual emergency response is interrupted. They want to expand that to be able to, crack down on these activities, even if no crime is occurring in the area at the time. We received a number of questions in Judiciary Committee that we wanted to go ahead and address for all of you in case you were curious as well. Is this already a crime under state statute? The answer is no. As I said, the crimes for interfering with police radios only go into effect if an actual emergency is being responded to, and the crimes for interfering with other network or communications like cell phone networks are specific to cell phones, so they are not contemplated under current legislation. Other questions received is this a federal crime? The answer is yes. This is already a federal crime. It's prosecutable under 2 areas of federal statute, but in the recent cases that we've had here in the state of Colorado, the feds have issued warnings and declined to prosecute because, quite frankly, they simply don't have capacity in federal courts to address these issues. So the state wanted to go ahead and provide an avenue for the state to prosecute these crimes if they felt that they were serious enough and were necessary. So with that, I would urge an aye vote and open it up to conversation. Thank you.
Representative Clifford.
Members, the Department of Public Safety asked me to speak about this particular bill, given I have a ridiculous amount of knowledge of our state DTRS system, which provides the services for these radios. So this is the same as someone cloning your cell phone, but it's done with a public safety radio. And it's not just police or fire, it's also your school buses, your public safety. And when two radios connect in the system in two different places, it causes massive interference to the whole system, but it also starts those GPS locations where we would think that an officer or an asset may be to get completely confused, and the system doesn't know what to do with the information. So it causes a massive shutdown. This is a major issue. The other thing you should know about people that do this is not an inexpensive process. This is not somebody that accidentally did it. If you wanted to try to get one of our public safety radios and try to clone encryption keys or try to clone access to the system or something like that, you're typically spending thousands of dollars to do this, and just all for the purpose of usually trying to just listen to the communications. This does not at all impact people's ability to listen to a communication. You can go purchase a scanner. You can program it. You can listen to all of our Colorado State Patrol's communications today. There are a few agencies throughout the state that are encrypted. You couldn't hear these even if you got these radios cloned. All you can do is cause problems to the system. And if you cause problems to the system and it gets overloaded, we don't have a way to fix it. It just shuts it down. It means that when a police officer presses the button on their radio, it goes boop, and that's all that happens. So please definitely vote yes on this. This is a very important bill. We need the opportunity to go address these people. Thank you.
Representative Evans.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to my colleague with his ridiculous amount of knowledge on this. It's a good thing that we both agree, otherwise we might have a debate to see whose amount of knowledge was more ridiculous, but I agree with you, so good bill, vote yes.
Representative Luck.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I am hoping that the ridiculous amount of knowledge in this room can help me understand something as a Luddite. So if I were to go and buy a radio device, could I innocently think that I'm just acting as a scanner, just listening, and be causing myself problems? Or do I actually actively have to take steps that demonstrate that I knowingly am engaging in this behavior?
Representative Parenti.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to my colleague for the question. There are actually several steps that are required to undertake the activities that we're addressing in this bill. So first of course, you have to go purchase the hardware, which my colleague already explained is actually quite expensive. You have to purchase software specifically designed for hacking or cloning. Then you have to go and find the frequencies and serial numbers of the police radios so that you can clone those. And then you have to activate that cloned serial number on the network. So it is rather complicated. And I would just point out also that the bill does include the words knowingly. And so we want to ensure that this is an intentional act. So thank you.
Representative Weinberg.
Thank you, Madam Chair. To do this, it has to be very intentional. You can't just go on eBay and decide to put in some ABC code and scan and decipher everything. It's really specific. So the biggest thing from this one that I want to touch base on is this can be used to lure police officers to a location for an ambush. That's one of the biggest things that was brought up in a committee. I want to make sure that that issue is pressed all the way home because that really touched me a few times. That's how bad this is. It's intentional. There's no way for us locally to prosecute it. Federally, it's hard, as my colleague has said already. We need to put limitations here, and as we say in this place, guardrails in place to protect our law enforcement for every single thing in this state, especially something as easy as this in the times that we are.
Representative Clifford.
Let me be unequivocally clear. There is absolutely no accidental or inadvertent way to have a radio cloned to the Colorado State Public Safety Communications Network. This does not happen by accident in any way, shape, form, or fashion. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of Senate Bill 108. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. Senate Bill 108 passes. Mr. Schiebel, please read the title of House Bill 1273.
House Bill 1273 by Representative Parenti, also Senators Hendrickson and Pelton B, concerning the continuation of the Veterans Assistance Grant Program and in connection therewith implementing the recommendation in the 2023 Sunset Report by the Department of Regulatory Agencies.
Representative Parenti.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Colleagues, this is a sunset bill that was brought through the State Civil Military and Veterans Affairs Committee. I'm honored to be running it with you today. This bill is simple. It continues an existing Veterans Assistance Grant Program. That program has historically had $1 million in funding. Our colleagues on the Joint Budget Committee authorized an additional $500,000 in this year's long bill, which is great for veterans across the state. I'm going to pause there, though, and with a little bit of leeway from the chair, I'm going to talk a little bit about how this bill interacts with another bill that's coming before this committee later this week.
Representative Parenti, if you don't mind moving the bill first.
Thank you. I will do that. I move House Bill 1273.
To the bill.
Yeah, thank you. So later this week, we're going to hear a bill that was brought to us by the department to create a Women's Veterans Appreciation Day in the state of Colorado. I want to say that I was initially approached by the department to run this bill over the summer, and after speaking to other women veterans like myself, I actually declined to run the bill. And I declined to run the bill for two reasons, because the overwhelming response from other women's veterans were, we already have Veterans Day for women, it's November 11th, and we don't want to give the department any excuses to wave flags for women on one day of the year and then decline women veterans equal access to services the other 364. And so, but to his credit, when they found someone else to run this bill, I was approached about why I was not supporting Women's Veterans Day, and I explained why. And my colleague was very supportive of my reasons and said, let's change the system.
And so, Representative Parenti, if you could bring it back to the current bill we are on. Thank you.
There's a confluence between the two bills that I'm getting to. So I have an amendment that I'm going to run to this bill, Veterans Assistance Grant Programs, to address this issue of women and underserved veterans in our community. And so with that, I move Amendment L001 to House Bill 1273 and ask that it be displayed.
One moment. Okay, it is properly displayed. Representative Parenti.
Thank you. So, and I apologize, colleagues, for what seemed like a trip down a side road. My comments were directly related to this amendment. What we want to do with this program is ensure that the Veterans Assistance Grant Program is being directed towards the veteran communities in our state who need it the most. So underserved veterans, and that includes women veterans. It also includes rural veterans. It includes aging veterans. It includes communities of color, right? There are many definitions under underserved veterans. It is a term in use by the Federal Department of Veterans Affairs. But I don't want this assembly later this week to move forward with a Women's Veterans Appreciation Day if we are unwilling to then put money towards ensuring that women veterans and other underserved veterans get equal access to the support and services that they need. So with that, I really urge your aye vote on this amendment and really look forward to serving all of the veterans in our community.
Representative Holtorf.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate the amendment brought forth by the bill sponsor to speaking specifically to House Bill 1273. Many people could say that all veterans are underserved. Many people could make that claim. So we want to focus on supporting veterans. I think this particular amendment is really, as I see it, specifically asking for women's veterans to be included with all underserved veterans, but specifically in this amendment, the way I understand it, line 20 and 21 of this amendment says inclusive criteria that encompasses diverse groups, including women's veterans. And then on line 29 and 30, criteria used to define underserved veterans and how program monies are allocated to meet the needs of underserved veterans. So based on those two criteria, I support the amendment as proposed and would ask everybody to support, if they have the same understanding that I understand, to support these two particular considerations.
Representative Lynch.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I have a legitimate question to the bill sponsor. So does this mean if we can't find served folks, that are we in essence taking this fund and splitting it in half? Because it says the money must go to those folks?
Representative Prenti.
Thank you, and thank you to my colleague for the question. So the language is fairly permissive. As you'll see, first of all, it says with the intent for at least 50% of the funds to go towards programs that provide services to underserved veterans. The Department of Veterans Affairs currently defines underserved veterans as, I'm going to pull this up. Efforts focus on addressing institutional barriers that may inhibit veterans of color, women, LGBTQ, veterans with disabilities, rural veterans, and veterans at risk for food insecurity and others who face persistent inequities. So I think when we look at that definition, it's quite easy to meet this mark. We might even already be meeting this mark, but we wanted to make the point, right, particularly in the context of creating a Women's Veterans Appreciation Day, that we cannot continue a system that turns women away at homeless shelters, turns women with children away from voucher programs, while waving the flag for them one other day of the year, right? That's really what we're trying to do here, so appreciate it.
Representative Lynch.
Thank you for that explanation. I don't see where the bill as it exists right now creates that barrier. So I think this is really kind of an unnecessary amendment. So.
Representative Armagost.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was coming in here seeing this one, ready to stand up and honor and jump behind it, and then this amendment popped up, and it was a little offensive to me. As a person that represents veterans in a veteran service organization that I run the Northern Colorado district of, we include all veterans. We have veterans that fall under this description. We have veterans that don't. So veterans in and of itself is inclusive. Every veteran service that we are aligned with, associated with, and offer would never turn anyone away of any variation of what is mentioned in this amendment. So for me, it's offensive to think that there's something that we need to do to make an inclusive assistance into an exclusive or divided assistance program. So I am not very comfortable with the way this is laid out and the way this was brought up to a sunset, something that we need to keep going. Then this amendment came up and made me have second thoughts. This is offensive to me as a veterans service organization leader, to veterans of all walks of life, and I would encourage a no vote on this amendment.
Representative Bottoms.
So I had talked with the, thank you, Chair. I talked with the sponsor ahead of time. I totally am in favor of the bill. I don't like the amendment, and this is the reason. As the sponsor just said, there may not be anybody in this category that's underserved. Okay, but with that statement attached to this amendment, we're allocating at least 50%. We're drawing a line in the sand that says at least 50% has to go to what? If the sponsor is right about this, there may not be anybody in this category, but we already have 50% carved out for what? Nothing? Now that's limiting. This amendment actually limits the ability of veterans to get their ability to get their funds. So this amendment actually does the opposite of what the bill does, because now you're stopping potentially, not exactly off top of the board, but you're potentially stopping 50% of all funds to go to all veterans. So this amendment actually potentially makes all veterans underserved at least to the 50% mark. So this makes no sense. This amendment is counterintuitive to the actual bill, which I would say most, if not all of our caucus agrees with the sponsor. This is a good bill. It's an important bill, but this amendment makes it the opposite, which actually cuts against it. And so I would urge a no vote on the amendment, but then an aye vote on the bill.
Members, it is way too loud in here. I've had to ask at least 5 times now, which is quite frankly much worse than my former 9th grade classroom. So please keep it down so that we can have a robust discussion about this amendment in the well. Thank you so much. Representative DeGraff.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I love how much we use the term robust discussion now. But this feels like a bait and switch. When we heard this in committee, it was I think it was unanimous. But this is changing the intent of the bill. This feels like wokeifying the bill just to get some buzzwords in there. That we have a category. And then we have subcategories that would be under that category, so they don't really need to be specified. But then you have this feels like a bait and switch when you say, because then you put in capital letters things like with the intent, appropriated from each fund each year, program is used to provide services, the Adjutant General shall define. So the Adjutant General has not defined. So what we've put in this bill now is something this bill this amendment rather, does another blank check. It says something will define. So we're going to approve something that is not yet defined. Shall define underserved veterans, which this bill does in terms of women veterans. The Adjutant General shall define, so that's something in the future. So we're approving something in legislation, in law, that is not even written yet. In accordance with the federal department's guidelines and to meet emerging, so emerging again, what does this mean? What's emerging? We don't know what's emerging. So why don't we just say what this bill includes instead of putting it off into the future and making it undefined? Emerging state, local needs and priorities. What are the emerging needs and priorities? We don't know. They're emerging. We'll find out after there's funds applied. Are those funds something that we intend to fund? We don't know, but we're going to approve it in advance. Based on what based on whatever the Adjutant General defines. With a focus, not a criteria, not a limitation, but a focus, kind of looking in that direction on inclusive criteria. What are inclusive criteria? We don't know. We don't know what these inclusive criteria are because they can change based on the focus, based on the Adjutant General. So in one paragraph, we've put at least 4 points of non-determination in there, so that we don't even know what we're funding. We don't even know what we're approving. So that encompasses diverse groups, including. So we have an entire bill about recognizing women veterans. And then what does this paragraph do? It changes everything, and it makes women veterans a subnote of this bill. That includes women veterans. It's not limited to women veterans. It includes women veterans. So I'll be a no on this amendment, and if the amendment passes, I'll be a no on the bill. Otherwise, I'll be a yes on the bill, but with this amendment, definitely a no.
Representative Martinez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's an honor to serve with you.
And an honor to serve with you.
Members, I rise in support of this amendment. I just want to state that there are veteran services are not equal across this state. This is one reason why I got involved in politics, is because when I got out, the San Luis Valley region, 6 counties in the valley in not 30 years ago, not 40 years ago, in 2010, didn't even have a doctor in our VA clinic in a 6-county region. And we were making veterans, female veterans, drive 4 hours to Denver to get any sort of medical care because they could not get the care that they needed. So when I see here about underserved veterans being emphasized in this, I'm 100% supportive of this. Because again, services are not equal across this state. And rural veterans, my rural veterans, are underserved at this point in time right now. So I think that we absolutely need this. We need to put the emphasis on this because, again, not everybody has access to VA clinics. Not everybody has access to the VA hospitals within a reasonable driving distance. And that needs to be taken into account. Making veterans drive 4 hours to get any sort of care is unacceptable. And so being able to recognize this, that there are an underserved need and an underserved group that need to be, that need additional resources, I don't think is a bad thing. And that's coming from me in the San Luis Valley, in southern Colorado, and I'm supportive of this amendment.
Representative DeGraff.
Thank you, Madam Chair. That's all good. I think we can, as a whole, say that veterans are underserved in general. And so if we're going to do a veterans are underserved in general, let's do an veterans are underserved in general. What this amendment is doing is taking something again that everybody agreed to in committee and said, let's have a focus on the specific needs of our women veterans, and then turning it around and making women veterans a subset of this bill. So this bill does not take away from the fact, but if this amendment goes through, then the entire purpose of the bill is negated. So why have the bill if you put this amendment in there? Because basically everybody falls into that same category of underserved veterans. Why do we need to, I mean, how are we going to start subdividing veterans? Veterans are underserved. We've got that. They've done well more than for the credit that they're given. But this bill was to specifically recognize the specific needs of our women veterans. This amendment, this bait and switch amendment strips that away and makes women a subnote to the entire process. So I do appreciate what you're saying on veterans, but I think this amendment just completely negates the idea of the bill. So vote no on this amendment.
Representative Lynch.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I think the big issue I have here is that this is going to create confusion. This is a great bill the way it stands right now. And when we start pulling out different categories, then the people administering these funds are going to have a hard time figuring out, well, are we giving this money, is this person appropriately underserved? So we have to set aside and have hesitation. That hesitation is going to stop funds from getting to our veterans when they need to get to our veterans. So this is really just unnecessary. It brings up an issue that doesn't need to be brought up. We're going to give this money to veterans equally, no matter where they're at. So I think for the fact that this causes confusion and it's not necessary, it doesn't really accomplish anything. This is a bad amendment, and we need to vote no on it.
Representative Hartsook.
Good morning, Madam Chair, and thank you. I rise in absolute opposition to this amendment. It just astounds me. This bill went through committee. It's very effective and very efficient. It serves veterans across the board. We all know that veterans are underserved in this state. There's countless agencies and organizations that get money ahead of veterans. Yeah, it sucks for everybody who's a veteran. Got it. And my wife is a veteran. And so to sit here and say that, oh, the women are underserved and we're going to carve things out We are taking something that should be serving all veterans, every single individual veteran, no matter how long they serve, no matter who they are, and taking care of them versus, oh, we're going to carve it out and say somebody's more undeserved than somebody else, and this category needs additional treatment. Well, you know what? When we all raised our right hand and went out to fight, in my case, we all wore Army green and we bled red. And now we're going to start treating everybody differently? That's garbage. We need to treat all the veterans, give them equal access, take care of all of them, not sit here and carve out a specific group for preferential treatment. We treat all veterans the same. I urge a no vote on this amendment.
Representative Prenti.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to address quickly some of the comments that I've made. The truth of the matter is, not all veterans have equal access, and that's the issue that we're trying to address here. We're not saying that no funding is going to go to any, traditional veterans organizations in the state of Colorado ever again. We're saying that we need to target some of this money to the communities who need it most. Women veterans face higher rates of post-traumatic stress disorder, 3 times the rate of their male counterparts. They face higher rates of poverty than their male counterparts. 1 in 12 of us is assaulted by another member of the military on active duty, and there are still not behavioral health experts in the system to help us. So no, we are denied access to shelters. We are denied access to health care that meets our needs. And so no, we do not all have equal access. And so I think when we're talking about a special grant program with additional dollars from the state, it's totally appropriate to try to target some of those dollars to the communities who need it the most. And those communities do include rural veterans. They include indigenous veterans. They include, yes, women veterans. That's the point. And it doesn't mean all the funding goes to those groups, but we do want to make sure that the groups who have the least access to service are getting most uplifted by this program. And that is absolutely our intent, and I urge an aye vote on this amendment. Thank you.
Representative Epps.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, colleagues. Earlier today, we heard our colleague from Southwest Denver introduce some guests who are here from some college students who were here, and one of the very sharp students asked me a question about what was the purpose of speaking on seconds, and I shared that sometimes part of the reason is a colleague who doesn't take up a lot of space is doing really good, important work on a bill, and we have some insight into it, and we want to make sure that we put our 2 cents in, which is what leads me to speak today. I was in State Affairs when we heard this bill. I've lost track of time, however long ago it was, and I'm going to confess here something that I have been struggling with awkwardly, how I would have had to share on thirds. I was absolutely a no on this bill for the reasons that the co-prime sponsor articulated. As a black woman who has many friends who have served, particularly black women who have been the living embodiment of the things that our representative shared, there was no way in good conscience that I could vote yes on this bill. This bill seemed like the sort of bill we should do after. Let me see 2, 3, 4 years of us doing the work that the sponsor described, and then we can do this recognition. But it was very clear when Representative Parenti broke down not just what was conceptually her goal for this, but how she was doing the active work to make sure that we're allocating funds in a way right now that is our opportunity to live the values that are outlined in the bill, that I would of course be a yes. I know folks don't have a whole lot of copious free time, but if you do, particularly if you have a commute, I would encourage you to tee up the audio. Tee up the audio from, we'll find the date for you, but from State Affairs that day, and listen to the discussion. Listen particularly to how our colleague was talked to and talked about, and consider the work that she has done to bring, via this amendment, the equity that some of us wouldn't have been able to vote for the bill, but you having done. Was that enough conditions precedent in one sentence? So I thank the representative, because literally what the bill is saying, if we're going to take an opportunity to honor folks, we were told to just trust and believe that we're going to start putting that into practice one day. And for the more cynical amongst us, The representative's amendment gives us the opportunity to not have to trust and believe that one day we will live the values. She's giving us the opportunity right now to live our values. So I thank you for the amendment in the deepest of ways, and thank you for the opportunity to bring me to a yes on the amendment and the bill, but the amendment for purposes of the conversation.
Representative Armagost.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I keep hearing the same things of talking about dividing up something that is all-inclusive. When we're talking about something I can speak from experience on, being a leader of everything north of Denver on this specific veteran service organization. Hundreds of people, actually over in the thousands, all walks of life are included in the veteran service organization that offers these same funding, the same programs that are funded by stuff like the bill originally, that are all inclusive. The fact that we're saying there are veterans that are underserved that don't have access to the same, that is an opinion. I can tell you from the VA aspect, that is an opinion, that is not a fact. Veterans as a whole have been underserved, and we're getting that back. And then we're going to throw a wrench in the gears to divide that up into a way that makes it exclusive rather than inclusive. That is wrong. We're going in the wrong direction. The bill was fine as it was. We need to get away from this before it ruins or poisons the water on the bill as written. I encourage a no vote. This is a federal issue. If you want to address this on the VA issue, write your congressman, write your congresswoman. You can get that fixed on the VA level if that's something you want to do. But on a state level, we need to keep things in the state funded unilaterally for veterans as a whole, all inclusive, not dividing it up in a way that fits somebody's needs or somebody's desires. I encourage a no vote, and I ask for a division.
Representative Martinez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to come up here again and state that access to resources in this state is not equitable. From my experience in my region, 6 counties in southern Colorado does not have equitable access as to someone in Denver or in El Paso County. That is fact. Why? Because we have one primary care clinic that you have to make an appointment on, and being able to wait because we have one nurse practitioner in 6 counties in the San Luis Valley that has a higher per capita veteran population than almost anywhere else in the state. And in that per capita veterans population are female veterans. There are indigenous veterans that have problems and access to other areas. So being able to have additional funds for them to being able to get the help that they need is absolutely critical. I also started running a veterans program in the San Luis Valley, and I'd been doing that before I stepped into the legislature. So I know well about the struggles that have happened here. And again, I want to reemphasize this. 6 counties in southern Colorado have one nurse practitioner. One for that entire region. And when they can't meet those needs, where do we send them? Sometimes at best, El Paso County in Colorado Springs, which is still 3 hours away at best. But sometimes it's in Denver. So having additional resources to making sure that certain veterans get additional help because they need it, I don't think is a bad thing. So I urge an aye vote on this amendment.
Representative DeGraff.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So again, okay, six counties, one nurse practitioner. The veterans are underserved. That's not what this amendment is about. I commend my colleague here for all the work on Veterans Affairs, and that's not an issue. Now, for the vaguely inflammatory whatever that was about how the sponsor was talked to and talked about, I don't remember anything negative. I remember everything being very positive. So I'll have to go back and listen to that, because it was I thought the bill overall was it was presented well, and it was and the need was convincingly conveyed. So that's not the issue here. The issue is the bait and switch of this policy. The issue is the bait and switch of the policy of then taking it and saying, hey, we've got good buy-in, so now we're going to take this and we're going to add something that says shall define guidelines. Guidelines aren't even substantive. They're just guidelines. They're not directive. They're not anything. It's just guidelines. Shall define guidelines to meet emerging state and local needs. Okay, well, this bill was to address current state and local needs. We were given, what the committee was given was the current state of local needs, not the emerging state and local needs. What are those emerging needs? And why do we need to give money to them? Why is there not just another bill run? It's not like we're short of time. I mean, we're already hundreds of bills past the 5 per individual. So why not just run another bill? This is a bait and switch. This is a bait and switch. Shall define guidelines. Nothing is
To the amendment, Representative DeGraff, we're not talking about motives.
I am. Shall define guidelines that are emerging, and that ultimately only what these guidelines, these emerging guidelines that shall define the need, are only including women veterans. They're not necessarily for women veterans, they're including women veterans. So an entire bill presented in committee to define the current need of women veterans, and an amendment to deal with the future need of future emerging needs. So again, this certainly does not negate the need for, because if we're going to go down this road, that again, it negates the entire bill. It negates the entire bill of what was needed. If you need more veteran services, do a bill for overall veteran services. I think that's a perfectly valid bill. We'll see how it's written. But this is not that. This is taking an emerging bill and turning an existing need and then turning it and saying, we really have a need for women veterans. Now we're going to change it to only include women veterans. That's what it says right here. All these encompasses diverse groups, including women veterans. We don't know what the diverse groups were that were emerging. Make the case for the individual groups. If those groups are subcategories of women veterans, they're already included in the bill. If those are not inclusive of or included under the category of women veterans, then do an actual bill and make the actual case. So again, I would contend, I have actually no problem with saying that this is a bait and switch amendment. So it's unfortunate, it's really unfortunate that this was presented well and then it was turned into something that's unsupportable. So I'll be a no on the amendment and a no on the bill if the amendment passes.
Representative Holtorf.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Madam Chair and caucus members. My colleague and fellow veteran pointed out that's 12%, I believe 12% of the population are women veterans. I do want to point out that I think there's a great concern in this language, but I believe the concern may be one reading too far into the intent. Now, I do want to point out that in the amendment, there are guardrails in this, and if you look at lines 17 through 18, the Adjutant General, 16 through 18, shall define underserved veterans in accordance with the Federal Department of Veterans Affairs guidelines. So I think we need to understand that there are federal guardrails, and it's actually in the amendment. Now, with the respect to lines 19 through 21, I want to point out that the bill sponsor and I have been talking this entire session about women's and women's veterans, and working together. And arguably, we are very far apart on a lot of policy issues. And we've had tug-of-wars on discussion and debate about the women's veterans issues. But we have come together to point out and highlight that there are needs for women's veterans. And we are working to try to address those shortfalls. The other part of this, with respect to rural veterans and Hispanic and Latino and Latina veterans and our Native American veterans. Yes, ma'am. So I want to point out that I think the desire of this amendment is just to allow for the intent. It isn't even, it has a permissive nature, but allow for the Department of Veterans Affairs, under the direction of the Adjutant General, which is the senior military personnel directing the DMVA, working with the Board of Veterans Affairs, so they don't work unilaterally, with the Board of Veterans Affairs to try to establish what some of these priorities might be. And I don't have time to go over the veterans percentages by county, but you got to look, if you look at the data, there's a lot of veterans in very rural places in this state. And many of them are in southern Colorado, in Representative Martinez's district. And many of them are Hispanic, Latino, Indigenous, Native American, and women. So I know this is causing a very, very contentious debate this morning. I apologize for that. I don't think that was the intent of the bill sponsor. This was not her intent, as we talked about supporting women veterans, and including women veterans in the discussion. So I yield back to the chair.
A division has been called. The question is the adoption of L1. A division has been requested. All those in the chamber not entitled to vote, please be seated. All those in favor of L1, please stand and remain standing, or raise your hand and keep it raised until the count is taken. You may be seated. All those opposed, please stand and remain standing in one place until the count is taken. You may be seated. Amendment L1 is passed. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of House Bill 1273. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. House Bill 1273 passes. Mr. Shebel, please read. Oh, Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to lay over House Bill 1335 until tomorrow.
House Bill 1335 is laid over until tomorrow. Mr. Shebel, please read the title of House Bill 1336.
House Bill 1336 by Representative Parenti, also Senator Rodriguez, concerning the deployment of broadband through grants administered by the Colorado Broadband Office.
Representative Parenti.
Is Representative Weinberg here? Weinberg? Yeah, I'll get started. Colleagues, this is a sunset bill that came through the Transportation, Housing, and Local Government Committee. With this bill, what we are doing is we're discontinuing the old Broadband Deployment Board, and we are rolling those functions under the Colorado Broadband Office. Just to give you a little bit of background, I'm sorry, let me go ahead and move the bill. Madam Chair, I move House Bill 1336 and the Transportation, Housing, and Local Government Committee report.
And the Appropriations Committee report?
And the Appropriations Committee report. Thank you.
Thank you. To the Appropriations Committee report.
No comments on the Appropriations Committee report.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of the Appropriations Committee report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The Appropriations report passes. To the THLG Committee report, Representative Parenti.
Thank you, Madam Chair. No comments on the Committee of Reference report.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of the THLG Committee report. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The Transportation, Housing, and Local Government Committee report passes. Representative Parenti, to the bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for course correcting us on that. Yeah, so the purpose of this bill is to sunset the old Broadband Deployment Board, roll those functions under the Colorado Broadband Office. Just for a little bit of background, the amount of funding that we're talking about with this program is about $15 million a year. The Colorado Broadband Office is already responsible for administering $900 million in federal funding per year to support rural broadband deployment. So this is simply rolling a small fraction of that money from the high cost support mechanism under the Colorado Broadband Office. It's good for Colorado, it's good for rural Colorado, and we support your yes vote.
Is there any further discussion? See Representative Frizzell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to move Amendment L004 to House Bill 1336 and ask that it be properly displayed.
It is properly displayed. Representative Frizzell.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. This particular amendment simply creates a sunset date. There was not a sunset date that was part of this bill, and we felt that it was important to add one. I ask for your aye vote.
Is there any further discussion? Representative Parenti.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Representative Frizzell, for bringing this amendment. I have no problems with this amendment, and we urge your aye vote. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of L4. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. L4 passes. Representative Parenti.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move Amendment L003 to House Bill 1336 and ask that it be displayed.
Thank you. It is properly displayed. Representative Parenti.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, members of the committee. This is actually a pretty small, just a cleanup bill. You can see the first thing it does is fix a grammatical error. The second thing it does is clarify what is meant by external stakeholders. It means the external stakeholders were identified in this other section. And then it adds to the duties of the Chief Information Officer the implementation of this broadband deployment program. So very simple, and we ask for your aye vote.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of L3. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. L3 passes. Representative Parenti.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to remind the members of the General Assembly that this is a good governance bill. It also received unanimous support from the members of the Joint Technology Committee, and we urge your aye vote. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of House Bill 1336 as amended. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. House Bill 13, the ayes have it. House Bill 1336 as amended passes. Mr. Schiebel, please read the title of Senate Bill 81.
Senate Bill 81 by Senator Cutter, also Representatives Kipp and Rutanell, concerning measures to increase protections from perfluoroalkyl and polyfluoroalkyl chemicals.
Representative Kipp.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move the bill and the committee report.
To the committee report.
In the Business Committee, we added on a section to make sure that cleaning products were included in the products that will go away that have PFAS in them, because they, by definition, are some of the products most likely to get into and pollute our drinking water. I ask for an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion on the committee report? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of the Business Affairs and Labor Committee report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The Business Affairs and Labor Committee report passes. To the bill, Representative Rutanell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Colleagues, I'm really grateful for your time today as we present on SB 24081, which relates to a critical issue that should concern every single one of us: the pervasive presence of PFAS, or forever chemicals, in our environment and its profound implications for our health and well-being. Research has unequivocally linked PFAS to a myriad of health problems, ranging from kidney and testicular cancer to liver and thyroid issues. It doesn't stop there. Reproductive problems, pregnancy-induced hypertension, low birth weight, and increased risk of birth defects are just the tip of the iceberg. PFAS has also been implicated in altering cholesterol levels and even the timing of puberty. The evidence is clear and alarming. Further, the detrimental impacts of PFAS extend beyond individual health. Studies have raised concerns about its impact on immune function and its ability to compromise vaccine effectiveness. PFAS contamination also carries a stark environmental justice dimension. Low-income communities and communities of color bear a disproportionate burden, often residing near PFAS-contaminated sites that exacerbate their health risks. All of this alarming research has led the EPA to propose an acceptable limit of PFAS of 4 parts per trillion, equivalent to 1 drop of PFAS in 5 Olympic-sized swimming pools. This level is established partly because it is essentially the lowest level at which they can be reliably measured. But today, we have an opportunity to pass important legislation to address these concerns. Starting in 2026, our proposed bill will prohibit the sale of intentionally added PFAS in various products, including cookware, dental floss, menstrual products, cleaning products, and ski wax. Starting in 2028, intentionally added PFAS in textile articles, outdoor apparel, and food equipment will also be prohibited. These are products that have already been banned and restricted in other states. This bill is about safeguarding our water resources, protecting public health, and envisioning a future where our everyday products are free from toxic chemicals. This bill is an opportunity for us to stand united in protecting our communities, our health, and our environment. Communities across Colorado and dozens of entities interested in protecting our water and public health appreciate your support. We urge an aye vote. Thank you.
Representative Kipp.
Thank you, members. This bill is really very timely. As we have, as a body, passed a number of bills over the last several years on PFAS chemicals. This one is especially timely because the Environmental Protection Agency just last week lowered the levels acceptable in drinking water from 70 parts per trillion to 4 parts per trillion. That just speaks to the extreme toxicity of these chemicals. What we're doing with this bill is we didn't get everything we wanted. We made a lot of compromises, but we are moving in the right direction to keep these toxic chemicals out of our environment. We've done this before in this chamber on a bipartisan basis, and I would hope that is the case today. So we ask for your aye vote.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of Senate Bill 81. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. Senate Bill 81 passes. Mr. Schiebel, please read the title of House Bill 1368.
House Bill 1368 by Representatives Lindsay and Velasco concerning the creation of the Language Access Advisory Board.
Representative Lindsay.
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair. It changed. I move House Bill 1368 and the Appropriations and State Civic, Military, and Veterans Affairs Committee report.
To the committee report, Representative Lindsay.
Thank you. In appropriations, we just had funds appropriated. So with that, I ask for an aye vote.
All those in favor of the committee report, say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. The committee report passes. To the bill.
Yeah.
To the State Affairs Committee report.
Wonderful. Thank you, Madam Chair. In State Affairs, we offered one amendment, and it just included our friends in the Ute tribe, Southern Ute Indian tribe, to the bill. And so with that, I ask for an aye vote.
Seeing no discussion, the question before us is the adoption of the committee report. All in favor say aye. All opposed, nay. The committee report passes. To the bill. Representative Velasco.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. So this bill is around language access for the Blue Book, which as we want to expand access to voting, it'd be a big deal. And also, we're looking into having some experts come together so they can give us recommendations around how to make our capital more accessible to people who don't speak English, so they can continue to participate and come express their lived experiences and advocate for themselves here at the Capitol.
Representative Lindsay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just this year, we've worked on providing some translation services for people of Colorado to be able to participate in all the fun things that we do here. In Colorado, we have more than 300,000 people with limited English proficiency, and that includes 90,000 persons who speak Englishes other than English or Spanish. So we have folks that need to engage in this process, want to engage in this process, and this board will begin the work of figuring out how to bridge that gap. I represent HD 42. It's one of the most diverse districts in the state. Many languages are represented, and I want all the constituents in my area to be able to come to the Capitol and testify, listen, participate, read their website, whatever. So please, we urge an aye vote. Thank you.
Representative DeGraff.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think full-up access is fantastic all the way across the board. The more people that we can have reading and participating, but there is a reason that we have an official language, and that's so you have one anchor point. You have one anchor point in the language. You don't have multiple anchors because you have to have a single standard at some point. You can figure this out pretty quickly if you take a paragraph and you translate it from one language and then you translate it to another language, or even just translate it back to English. You'll get something similar, but you won't necessarily get the exact same thing. And when you don't have the exact same thing, now you have to start wondering, you have to start looking at which is the official version. Is it the English version that's official? Is it the Spanish version that's official? Is it the Mandarin Chinese version that's official? How are those interpreted? Because eventually they'll be interpreted back to the English language. I got a paper the other day. It was pretty extensive. It was a scientific paper, and I obviously couldn't read it because it was in Czech. But you know what? I could put it in Google Translate, and I could get a quick answer. Now, that did not negate that if there were some differences, then I might have to go back to the original. But this is not a discriminatory practice to keep it in one language. What we're looking at is an incredible cost across the board. Now, what was presented was really to put this into Spanish, and the sponsor said, well, there's 90,000 other people that speak other than Spanish. So we're going to say, well, we're going to do English, but then we'll do Spanish. Well, why Spanish instead of another language? You're just substituting another primary language. Spanish is not an indigenous language of any place around the United States. It comes from Spain. So all we're doing is we're pushing this down, and then we're going to create a level of confusion. We're going to create a level of cost. We're going to create a continual level of cost. And the witnesses were quite clear that they don't want it just in this language. They want it that this was just the beginning. So now you're going to have the blue books in various languages. Now you're going to have official translations in all of those various languages. And then you're going to have to have disputes as to what those mean. If you keep it in English, and there are agencies that would be welcome, yes, absolutely. Translate the blue book into whatever, provide that blue book, provide that the blue book language is available online. There are systems that will already translate it. But when you put the government involved in this, all of a sudden you're looking at official translations. And when you have official translations, you need to make sure that cost is that when you have official translations, you have to make sure every word is correct, every I is dotted, every T is crossed, the common parlance is, the understanding is conveyed. You have the Ich bin ein Berliner kind of comment, which can mean two entirely different things depending on how it's presented. And when you do multiple languages, now let's say you compare the official version of you compare the official version of the Spanish to the official version of Czech. Are they understood the same way? Probably not. And now you're going to put the state in a matter of resolving disputes between various official translations. I fully agree that, this is fantastic. Get those forms, get the language of those forms translated. We have agencies that will do that. That's fantastic. But for full participation in a country where the official language is English, you have to have an anchor point. You have to have one steady point. Because you're not even talking about the various dialects of Spanish, which is the primary. And I'm sure that will, so I would recommend a no vote on this. This is what you would call, I think, a Pandora's box. You open it up just to see what's inside, and again, I'm all for inclusion. But we have systems that make this inclusion possible, rapidly possible. The time that it takes to translate a document is the time that it takes to copy and paste and then read the translation. That will not be the case if it's the state. The state will have to go in, analyze everything, make sure it's understood the same way, make sure the translation is all the same, and this bill, the good intentions of this bill are going to open a Pandora's box into all kinds of problems and all kinds of expense. Not a matter of who can participate, that's fantastic, but as far as translation and intent of what those documents mean. So who knows how much this program is going to cost ultimately when you try to incorporate the various dialects, when you like each of the other languages. Because if you say that one language, it needs to be presented in one language, now, even just constitutionally, you're creating a favored group outside of the official. And when you create a favored group, now you have to open it up to all the others. So, again, I see a little bit of skepticism. I don't know how it's going to work, but obviously, I would say the skepticism is in terms of a preference and a priority in terms of one language over every other. And if you're going to preference one language, one secondary language over all the others, I would ask you why. What is the basis? What is the basis by which you would prefer Spanish or any of the other dialects over, say, Mandarin, Chinese, or Czech, or Polish? What would be the basis for that? Well, it was a legitimate question, but I see there's not an answer. So, again, this is going to open up a whole can of worms. It's going to be a big expense. It's never going to end. There are thousands of languages in the world. There are thousands of immigrants. This is going to create a huge problem for us.
Representative Garcia.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, I want to, there's a couple, I don't know where these were coming from. There was a couple things that I just wanted to clarify. The first piece is while Colorado is English is official language state by the Constitution, that does not mean only. It does not preclude state governments or local governments from supporting its residents in other languages. The idea that translations or interpretations would be going from Czech to Spanish to Mandarin or anything like that is simply false because of the fact that we are Colorado as an official language. The base language is and will always be English until or if that ever changes in our Constitution. The Constitution itself was originally written in German, Spanish, and English. The fact that we are a state, a beautiful, diverse state, multilingual state, we should embrace this bill because there's nothing in this bill, first off, that requires or even addresses any sort of constitutional amendment changes. What this bill is doing is it's creating the capacity and the ability for an advisory board to identify what the barriers are for everyone who lives in the state, everyone who we are supposed to represent, to be able to be meaningfully engaged in our democracy. It's identifying barriers, providing recommendations. Why are we so afraid of addressing barriers and investigating barriers in this chamber? We should be embracing every opportunity we have to investigate, to analyze, to evaluate, and to figure out and come up with solutions to make our democracy more accessible to every single person in this state whom we represent. I urge and I vote.
Majority Leader Duran.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to thank the bill sponsors for bringing this bill. I just wanted to give some clarity to the purpose of this bill. It all started with our Blue Book. In trying to decide, when we send the Blue Book out this year, there's different costs, whether it's the thickness of paper, how many words you have on the page, and us trying to determine on executive committee, should we put this all, right, in a couple different languages throughout the state and spend the millions of dollars that takes. And in conversations, we decided, why not create an advisory board? An advisory board, so we're not just throwing millions of dollars out there assuming that the Blue Book needs to be in several different languages. So just a reminder here that the advisory board will consist of 3 members of the House of Representatives, 3 members of the Senate, 1 member representing the Colorado Language Access Coalition, 1 member representing a local government that has implemented, keyword, implemented a language access plan or has a language access advisory entity, 1 member representing persons with disabilities, 1 member who works in translation or interpretation services, 1 member with experience in language access in rural communities, because we know the struggle in our rural communities, 1 member with expertise in language access relating to elections. The non-voting members of the advisory board are the Director of Research of the Legislative Council or the Director designee, and the Director of the Office of Legislative Legal Services or the Director's designee. So my point in reading all that to you was just to say, instead of throwing money that we're trying to always be mindful of here and the work that we do every day, this advisory board will meet through the interim. They will have these conversations. They will bring back to us in the legislature what is going to work and what we need to work on next year. So I strongly support this and all the work the bill sponsors have put into this. The fact that we're having the conversation, the fact that we want to meet the needs of our communities throughout the entire state of Colorado, and we want to make sure we do it in a responsible, mindful way in regards to our budget and making sure that we meet the diverse needs that are in this state. So conversations are important. This is what this is about, and I urge you to vote yes on this bill.
Representative DeGraff.
And I don't have any problem with mindfully addressing the needs, but the mindful nature of it. We're talking about a language advisory board. We're talking about the need to get this, and at least the way it was presented, the entire thing was presented is in terms of a translating these blue books, even just now, the original, translating the blue books into various languages. And of course, the first language would be Spanish. And as the sponsors said, the Constitution was originally presented in Spanish and in German. And the reason I would say that they eliminated and went down to English was not because, I don't know why they went down that road, other than economic reasons. But there's a reason that they eliminated 2 languages. Probably 1 for cost and 2 for clarity. I don't see any advocation. There's no advocacy for going back to German. Maybe there should be. Maybe we do it all in that. I'm sure there was a large German population at the time. They probably felt a little disenfranchised. But you still have the same problem. We have lots of groups that are saying, well, hey, we want to do the Blue Book in a different language. Great, do the Blue Book in a different language. It's available online. Copy, paste, do the have it done in a community. Lots of communities do that. Lots of communities do this already. The problem remains you have a committee that is going to determine whether this needs to go into a different language. Okay, let's say we have a committee and they decide that going down this road of translating it into a different language is not needed. Fantastic. We just spent money on maintaining the English language. Let's say they decide which a committee based on the makeup of that committee is highly unlikely to find that translating it into 1 or more languages is not the way to go. And when you translate it into 1 or more languages, those become official documents of the state of Colorado, and the translation and any nuance to that translation becomes very important. That's all I'm saying. You can have a community and they can copy that to their heart's content, and if you have a large community, which would be the basis for the state focusing on that community has the resources. You have subscriptions, this is not exclusive. If you start going down the path of saying, well, we have to do something outside of the official language, now you're being exclusive. Let's say it's Spanish. You say, okay, we're going to do English and Spanish. Well, now you're being exclusive of all of the other languages. All of them. Not one of them. You're being exclusive of all of them. And you're being exclusive on the basis of less resources. So the language that only has a handful of people here represented in the state would have less resources to do a translation, to do translations, to handle those things. And so this bill would, the translating it into one language over another actually becomes discriminatory to lesser represented demographics. It just does. So it's not a bill of inclusivity, it's a bill of exclusivity. We have great technology that will translate this stuff immediately. That puts the onus on the community. True. That they have to understand that maybe there's some limitations in the translation. And they might have to ask some other questions. But if we take that, if we decide to go down this path, take that expense on, now I think you're opening up the state even to potential lawsuits of misunderstanding. So it's a Pandora's box. It's well intended. I got that. It's great. It's great intentions. We want this to be, I'm a second generation American. I'm sure my grandparents would have loved for everything to have been translated into Dutch. But they also had to make the struggle to be part of the entire, to be a part of the community. Now, of course, they didn't have near as many forms and everything of government intervention as that we do now. That's a whole other issue. But if we go down this route, this is being exclusive of everybody, of every group that doesn't have major demographic representation. It's not inclusive, it's exclusive. So I recommend a no vote for that reason, as well as for the cost and probable litigation that's going to be around all of this stuff. So it's good intentions, it's going to create a lot of problems.
Seeing no further discussion, the question before us is a passage of House Bill 24-1368. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. House Bill 24-1368 passes. Mr. Schiebel, please read the title to House Bill 24-1099.
House Bill 1099 by Representatives Lindsay and Soper, also Senators Buckner and Pelton B, concerning procedural requirements in evictions and in connection therewith prohibiting certain fees for a defendant and directing courts to mail certain documents on a defendant's behalf.
Representative Lindsay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move House Bill 1099 and the Appropriations and Transportation, Housing, and Local Government Committee report.
To the Appropriations Committee report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In appropriations, we appropriated some funds. We also ran an amendment that pushed back the effective date back to November of this year, giving judicial more time to implement changes, and also a couple of technical changes, typo. So with that, I ask an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion on the Appropriations report? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of the Appropriations report. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. The Appropriations report passes. To the Transportation and Housing and Local Government report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In THLG, we had an amendment. It was a technical clarification suggested by State Judicial to clarify that Judicial's obligation to provide free mailing to defendants applies to pro se defendants who are filing physically and not through e-filing. It also passed unanimously out of Transportation. So with that, I ask for an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion on the Transportation and Housing and Local Government report? Seeing none, the question before us is a passage of the Transportation, Housing, and Local Government report. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The Transportation, Housing, and Local Government report passes. To the bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I've had the good fortune of being able to work on this bill with Representative Soper. And let me tell you a little bit about it. And Rep. Soper is here on the wall, so he'll have some comments as well. When a landlord files an eviction against a tenant, that tenant may file a document called an answer. And this gives the tenant an opportunity to explain their perspective on the matter or dispute of the claim. Most importantly, it allows the tenant to participate in the eviction proceedings rather than face a default judgment and automatically lose their home. The cost to file this answer is $80. And when you are behind on rent and in the eviction process, that $80 may as well be $800. So there's a waiver process currently that exists that people who cannot afford this fee can go through, but it can be stigmatizing, and it may also discourage people from defending themselves in court. So the benefits to this bill, everyone involved in the eviction process, the tenants would be spared the indignity of asking for this fee to be waived, would be more likely to file an answer, and would be less likely to face a default judgment and lose their housing. Legal aid attorneys would be able to dedicate more time providing meaningful legal assistance to tenants and waste less time completing these filing waivers. The Colorado Judicial Department would waste less time and money sifting through and approving waivers. And whenever we can make government more efficient, let's do it. And for landlords, they would be more likely to receive back rent if tenants are not spending their limited money on fees and instead giving it to their landlord to come up current. So with that, I ask and I vote, and I'd like to pass it off to Representative Soper.
Representative Soper.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. I just wanted to say a couple of words about this bill. One thing that it does is by eliminating the $80 fee for everyone, it means that judicial spends less time having to verify who is indigent, which means cutting government costs and wasteful spending. It actually ends up costing us more, believe it or not. The second reason for why this is so important to be able to eliminate the fee is oftentimes when filing an answer in court proceedings, there is a fee to file that answer. But when you're being evicted, it's the only time when your house is being threatened, your housing is being threatened. And so that's an important distinction for why eliminating this fee is so much different than eliminating any of the other answer fees. It really is about making sure that if you're going to be kicked out of the one place you live, that at least you have the chance to make your case and answer for that without being hit with $80. And I'd ask for a yes vote.
Representative Luck.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I appreciate and support the idea of the tenant side, but my question is, was any conversation given to providing the same for the landlord? Because there are a number of landlords who are, as a good colleague from House District 47 would say, land rich and money poor. And so the idea, they also have to file with a filing fee. So was there any conversation about just eliminating, for the purposes of eviction, all court fees so as to allow for access to justice for both parties?
Thank you for the
Representative
question.
Lindsay.
Oh, yes. Thank you, Madam Chair. This bill, the reason that eliminating this fee is so important is because people are going to court to defend themselves from losing the very place that they sleep at night. And the landlords in this case are not under the same circumstance. So that's why we think it's important when people are struggling to even be able to afford their place, they can have this fee eliminated. There is no talk for including landlords in that.
Representative Luck.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I appreciate the answer. I will just say that I think that that is an injustice to the landlords. Not every landlord is in a position where they are not about to lose their own properties as a result of these different interactions. And so to suggest that there are landlords that don't have similar financial constraints and aren't similarly positioned, who aren't relying upon those dollars coming in to maybe maintain their own houses in their own situations, and for us as the state to tip the scales in that way, I don't think is just.
Representative DeGraff.
Not equitable. I think that is the best analysis of this. Is again, as my colleague mentioned, that this again, if you have an eviction, it's probably because of non-payment of rent, most likely. So you have both parties that are affected monetarily in this. Of course, you have the one side that can't afford it, and the other side that does not have the money from that. But this kind of goes in a whole different realm of, once again, of just the assumption that anybody who owns property just has money to burn. If you want to be equitable, reduce the court fees for both sides, waive the court fees for both sides. And there's also already a process for waiving the court fees if needed. So now we're going to just assume that everybody that is being evicted doesn't have the money. We're going to assume that the people that are defending their property have the money. And we're just going to make that heavy-handed determination across the board because of an ideological predisposition. And that's what we're basing this on. We're basing it on, again, it's always the attack on the property owner. It's always the maybe attack is a little bit too strong, but always the assumption against the property owner. So there are processes in place that would make that where the judge could make the determination and say whether one person needs to have that fee waived. But right now, this is just taking the overall, the House of Representatives, the House of Legislators rather, rude. The House of Legislators is all-knowing in this space. So it's already being handled. It's being handled in actually a more equitable way. So I'd say no.
Representative Lindsay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to respond quickly that this bill deals with respondents to evictions, obviously, and eliminates that fee completely. There are other mechanisms in our judicial system where indigent clients of any kind, whether they are the plaintiff or the defendant, can qualify to have their fees waived. That's different. It's not particularly related to this bill. So if a landlord is particularly struggling, they can still go through that fee waiver process, but respondents in evictions do not have to go through that process. It's just automatically waived. So if someone is struggling, there is still some help. We want everybody to be able to meaningfully engage in the judicial system. Thank you. Please vote yes.
Seeing no further discussion of House Bill 24-1099, the question before us is the adoption of House Bill 24-1099. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. House Bill 24-1099 passes. Madam Majority Leader.
Madam Chair, I move the committee rise and report.
You've heard the motion. Seeing no objection, the committee will rise and report.
The House will come back to order. Mr. Schiebel, please read the report of the Committee of the Whole.
Madam Speaker, your Committee of the Whole begs leave to report as under consideration the following attached bills, being the second reading thereof and making the following recommendations thereon. House Bills 1099 as amended, 1231 as amended, 1235 as amended, 1273 as amended, 1336 as amended, 1368 as amended, passed on second reading, ordered engrossed and placed on the calendar for third reading final passage. Senate Bills 81 as amended and 108 passed on second reading, ordered revised and placed on the calendar for third reading final passage. House Bill 1335 laid over until April 16, 2024.
Representative Hamrick. Members, you've heard the motion. There is an amendment at the desk. Mr. Schiebel, please read the Armagost amendment to the Committee of the Whole report.
Representative Armagost moved to amend the report of the Committee of the Whole to reverse the action taken by the committee in adopting the following Parenti Amendment L1 to House Bill 1273 to show that said amendment lost and that House Bill 1273 as amended passed.
Representative Armagost.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move the Armagost Amendment to the Committee of the Whole report and ask it to be properly displayed.
Thank you. It is properly displayed. Please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So again, when we're talking about veteran assistance, we are talking about an all-inclusive veteran assistance. For a bill that was specifically designed to enhance and supplement veteran assistance, and for us to break it down into something that makes an inclusive bill exclusive, and identifying individually different programs to pay more attention to than others, we're talking about veterans. So while I do agree with my colleague from San Luis Valley that there is definitely a need to address rural veteran organizations where there are veterans that have to drive hours to go to Denver to get a simple prescription filled, that is unacceptable. But when we are talking about making this into something where we are identifying individually veteran entities that we think need to get more attention than others, that's where I find it inappropriate. And we need to keep this bill the way it was. We need to keep it in its original form. So I don't think this amendment is going to do anything but detract from the bill that was a good bill as introduced. So I would encourage a no vote on the bill, but I would encourage a yes vote on this amendment. Thank you.
Representative Parenti.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Colleagues, this amendment is very clear with its intent. We want to make sure that the funding for this very particular grant program, and it's not all the funding for veterans in the state of Colorado, it's the funding for this very particular grant program, goes to the veteran communities who need it the most, as defined by the term underserved, which is actually a well-understood term in the veteran space. And so I would urge a no vote on this amendment. Thank you.
Seeing no further discussion, the motion before us is the Armagost Amendment to the Committee of the Whole report. Mr. Schiebel, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representative Titone, how do you vote? Representative Titone votes no. Representative Woodrow, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Woodrow votes no. Representative Soper, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Soper votes yes. Representative Mabry. That is a $5 fine. Please excuse Representative Mabry. Please close the machine. With 17 aye, 40 no, and 8 excused, the amendment is lost. The question before us is the adoption of the report of the Committee of the Whole. Mr. Schiebel, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representative Titone, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Titone votes yes. Representative Woodrow, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Woodrow votes yes. Representative Soper, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Soper votes no. Marshall and Parenti. Please close the machine. With 39 aye, 18 no, and 8 excused, the report of the Committee of the Whole is adopted. Additional announcements? Rep. Snyder?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. A change in order today. Senate Bill 86 will be heard first in Finance. Senate Bill 53 will be heard fifth in Finance. And on a separate matter, there's a sheet up here that shows the people that have been fined and have not paid it. We will not read that today, but starting Wednesday, we're gonna shame you out. So check the list, and if you owe money, put it in the jar. Thank you.
Wow. Rep. Basnicker?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, the State Civic Military and Veterans Affairs Committee will meet at 1:30 in LSBA. There is a slight change to the order of bills. We will move 1441 to the top of the order, and then we will also hear 1003, 1004. Those are concurrent resolutions, and then House Bill 1442 as well.
Thank you. AML Winter, did you have an announcement? Okay. Representative Clifford.
Madam Speaker, a point of personal privilege.
So granted.
Members, please keep your seats. Nothing like that. So I want to address something publicly. I had expected that the rapture was supposed to come last Wednesday, and I got here and everybody was here, so I discovered at that moment that I probably shouldn't believe everything that I see on TikTok. And around that same time, Wednesday before last, we had an incident in my office where we had one of the gun lobbying organizations paraded through the building with pallets of papers, and then they made their way over to the State Services building and somehow ended up at my aide's desk. They covered his desk with papers. He looked through those papers, determined that there were no real petitions. He determined that there were no names or even cities at that moment that had anything to do with anyone from our district. And while they were in front of him, he picked them up and moved them across the hall. Later that day, there was a video that got posted of my aide saying that he tore something up, that he somehow kept petitions away from me. I was unaware of this. When they came in my office with the camera, I heard them harassing him at his desk and said, if you want to talk to the representative, come in here and talk to me. And I engaged with this group professionally, I believe. You can watch the video on TikTok. We're a couple million views. They posted my cell phone number. The thing that concerns me the most and that I really need to address, though, is they went after the aide. College student, working here for 120-ish days. They posted his information online. He's getting a master's degree and was about to go get his life started, and he's had to take all his socials down. We had to put extra security at his house. You know, I spent my Saturday dealing with things like the Colorado State Patrol's threat assessments team. We've, not okay. I am not intimidated. I'm easily amused, but it is absolutely inappropriate for groups like this to be going after our staff. Doesn't work in the least. So I'm going to continue to take actions to deal with that. The only reason that I'm bringing it to you is just because I want to make sure that I interact with it publicly. I promised a few people that I would actually say something. We didn't find anything that they delivered to us that was massively useful. And one of the things that just is a bit heartbreaking to me is that we have organizations that represent themselves to 2A advocates like they're coming here doing extraordinary work when we get to see the work that they're doing and they're not engaging us about the political process. You know, the shenanigans don't work. I'm happy to sit down, and I sat down with that group the following day in my office for a completely normal, everyday legislator conversation. People are welcome to contact me in my office. I will represent my district. I have returned every single telephone call from anybody that doxed me that got my cell phone number off Twitter or TikTok. I answered every call, every email, every text message. Many of them were considerably disturbing. Many of them were really early in the morning. I took those calls. I encourage anybody that wants to reach out to their legislators to do so directly and not to put third parties in between them and their representation. But I just really wanted to, I'm still upset and disturbed that anybody that lobbies in this building would go after my staff.
Rep. Clifford, you have
Thank
1
you.
minute remaining. Thank you, Representative. Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move to lay over the balance of the calendar to Tuesday, April 16th, 2024.
Seeing no objection, the balance of the calendar will be laid over until Tuesday, April 16th, 2024. Madam Majority Leader.
I move the House stand in recess until later today.
Seeing no objection, the House will stand in recess until later today.